and welcome to our first edition of Nigeria Decides, where we talk about issues around the 2023 elections. And tonight, we're going to start where it matters the most, with the voters. We'll be discussing voter power. What does it mean to be a voter in a democracy? And particularly, what does it mean to be a voter in this election? And my name is Suleiman. I haven't been on the screen for a while, but I am back, and I'm back for good. From now on up to next week and the week after next, we'll be bringing you guests to discuss all issues around the 2023 elections. And as you know, that election is just a few days away. It happens on Saturday, 25th February 2023. And after that, we have the governorship elections coming up 2 weeks later on 11th March 2023. I have two guests with me, but I'll keep you in a little suspense before I introduce them. And we'll be taking a small rundown on the meaning of voting in a democracy. Stay with us.
According to Collins English Dictionary, voter card is the instrument that enables a person to register to vote in an election. There is an existing notion that what a weapon does to a soldier in the front line or a plug to a farmer is akin to what a voter card does to an electorate. In Nigeria, there is what is termed as permanent voter card, PVC, which, like in the general definition, enables registered voters exercise their civic right to vote in the general elections.
The PVC is the power that every man has. When you have your PVC, you will vote for whosoever you want to vote for.
Because vote is our power. We actually needed to do that because this time around we want to take the power by our hands.
Considered the strongest instrument to elect leaders in any democracy, the current permanent voter card replaced what is then known as temporary voter card in use, in line with ongoing transformation of the electoral process. It began with the introduction of smart card reader by the Attahiru Jega-led INEC and deepened by the introduction of bimodal voter accreditation system, otherwise known as VBAS, by the current election management body.
It should be accessible. All you need to do to go to a computer, fill your local government, fill your details, 1 or 2 details inside the PVC. Put it in, you understand? If there is a level, there is a way you can sign in computers, then you put it in.
INEC should try to make it more liberal, not in one small office where thousands of people will be gathered. They should make it more liberal, open more centers.
Because of the way things go in this country, many people that are supposed to go out there and even register in the first place, they are hindered, they have their reservation that they are reluctant, they don't want to be pushed here and there, especially the elderly.
These transformations have over time built the confidence of the electorates and tackled the traditional challenges of ballot snatching, stuffing that have characterized previous exercises. Though imagined challenge of vote trading by desperate politicians and poverty-stricken electorate poses a great threat to the impact of the voter's card in the enthronement of credible leadership. Notwithstanding, the potency and impact of voter card to an eligible voter cannot be toyed with, especially in the face of growing credible leadership question. Shapir Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Welcome back once again to our first edition of Nigeria Decides. And with me are two important guests who know quite a lot about what it means to be a voter, but also what it means to educate voters about their voting choices, about what it means to vote in a democracy such as ours. On my right is Dr. Garba Abari, the Director General of the National Orientation Agency. In case you don't know, the National Orientation Agency is the agency charged with orienting Nigerians towards the objectives and goals of the state. You're much welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Also with me is someone who is very familiar with INEC and its procedures, someone who used to be an insider in INEC, Mr. Nick Dazang, former Director of Education and Publicity of INEC. You're much welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here.
Yep. So before we go on, we'll take just a short break, and then when we return, we'll start the program fully. Welcome back. Dr. Garba, Dr. Abari, let me start with you. So much has been going on in this election so far. Parties campaigning, primaries have come and gone, the election season is upon us, and in just about a few days, voters will be lining up to vote. What does it really mean to be a voter? In general, but especially in this election? What role does the voter have to play in this process?
Thank you very much. I think there is perhaps no cause to distinguish between the role of the voter in this election and indeed in all elections. Because elections, as you very well know, are about the choice of the people for the candidates of their choice leading up to the emergence of leadership. In this respect, therefore, the people are truly the custodian of the true power of bringing in a leadership or sending out a leadership through the powers that the Constitution has given to them, through the power that the Electoral Act has given to them. And in this respect, all people, all stakeholders actually tend to come to play their role to highlight, escalate, bring to the surface the power of the voters. And that explains what we see around, with the political parties going around to promise all heaven on earth to the voters. Do this, give us your vote, and we do A, B, C, and D. Give us your vote because at the end of the day, it is your choice that makes what we are going to be. President, governor, senator, House of Reps. In fact, the power of the voter in a democracy is inestimable. That's one. However, let me come to the point of the power of the voter in the context of Nigeria's democracy.
Yes.
The power of the voter in the context of Nigeria's democracy has not been fully exploited to the optimum point, largely because political players, political parties themselves that are supposed to be democratic, internally democratic, articulate interests, aggregate interests, bring all of this and lay them pace up, all the cards pace up on the table for people to make informed choices, have fallen short of that responsibility. In most instances, what you see is actually civil society, and a select few of political players in the political ecology that come out to highlight the power of the voter. Secondly, the nature of our democratic process has made it so much that the power of the voter is undermined by the very political process that is supposed to promote. What do I mean? When you have political parties that are not internally democratic, do not actually respect their own rules, and they cannot be any more democratic and cannot be democratic. So they do not believe, for example, in the power of the voting capacity of their own members. Then it gives actually a very big gap and a deficit
Thank
for
you
the
very much.
voter to come in.
Thank you very much. It's interesting what Dr. Abari is saying, isn't it? The DGNO is saying, isn't looking at the power of voter at different levels within political parties, but also in general elections like the ones we're having now. I'll be looking at both one at a time. If we look at the power of the voter, you know, in the general election, such as the one that we're about having now, you know, would you say that Nigerians fully recognize, you know, their power as voters? Because that's one of the issues Dr. Abari raised, that we don't fully grasp.
Let me proceed from the tangent from which he stopped.
Yes.
Because he recalls for me with nostalgia some of the things I read in the past, particularly by one of the classicists in the area of political parties, Maurice Duvaja. He wrote one of the most memorable books in this area. Having said that, let me admit that if we go by the time-honored definition of democracy itself, as articulated by Abraham Lincoln, he once said democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. What it means is that the democracy itself is predicated on power that resides with the people. The sovereignty of democracy or power resides with the people. Alas, and unfortunately, in our own dispensation, you know, the voters themselves do not appreciate that they have this power. Part of it is lack of education. Most people are not educated about the power of the permanent voter cards that they possess. There are other variables, other factors that also undermine this power, which is that, you know, apart from lack of education, we have poverty. As we speak, not less than 130 million Nigerians are living in extreme poverty. And we have seen over the years how politicians take advantage of this poverty. They pauperize Nigerians. They go out of their way, permit me to say this, to steal the people blind, and then at the end of the day, use the proceeds from this massive theft to bribe them in order to vote for them. But I keep saying that we have a lot of work to do, and the work has just begun. We need to continue to educate our people to understand that the sovereignty, that the power, you know, in a democracy lies with them. And the way they exercise that power, the way they vote, determines how their fortunes change or are made or they are mad. For example, from my own experiences in INEC over the years, we have seen a situation where people don't even appreciate that if they vote in a certain direction, that direction would deliver good governance to them. Instead, they go for quick fixes. You know, they sell, they collect as little as 500 naira to 1,000 naira to sell their
You're already talking about vote buying.
Yes.
Which is one of the issues we'll be discussing very soon. But let me take the two of you on, beginning from Dr. Abadi, because a crucial issue you mentioned is voter education. Cool? You know, if we're saying that voters have an underappreciation of their own power, then maybe educating them can help, right? And one of the two agencies, you know, mandated within our system to educate voters is what I have right here in front of me, the NOA and INEC itself. So I will start with the National Orientation Agency. Dr. Abari, since the beginning of this election specifically, what can the NOA, what have you done in trying to educate Nigerian voters to understand that within our democratic system, the power belongs to them?
Are you referring to the preparations towards the 2023 elections?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think voter education, irrespective of vote buying and the vote selling, has been part of the National Orientation Agency flagship programs.
Okay.
And this we have been doing alongside the Independent National Electoral Commission and other traditional partners of the NOA, which is the religious leaders and the traditional rulers, and the community leaders and community ombudsmen. The issue of vote buying, or what I can call, or what some people have called transactional politics, is as old as the democratic process in this country has been. What we have been seeing is actually an incremental pace of this transactional politics, largely not owing to lack of education on the part of the voter.
Okay.
The Nigerian voter, on the contrary, is very politically informed, very politically informed.
Interesting.
In fact, Nigeria's political history has developed to a point where, to date, if you look at the political parties of pre-colonial times, post-colonial times, the First Republic, Second Republic, up until about maybe the Third Republic, before it was aborted, there are even families that can trace their political genealogy, you know, to political parties. You could say, you go to Kano, for example, you go to Maiduguri, for example, you go to any part of this country, there are families whose political genealogy could be traced to particular political parties.
Interesting.
But what we have, what I'm trying to say here is, there has been a disconnect between the voting process and the voter and the power of the voter vis-a-vis the role of the political parties that are supposed to be the beneficiaries of the power of the voter.
So what has the NOA tried to do to bridge this gap?
Three things.
Yes.
Three things. One, taking the messages to the people to realize when you sell your vote, you are selling good governance. You are undermining democracy. You are selling your right to social services. You are selling your right to freedom and franchise. You are compromising your civic duty. Two, when you sell your vote, the leader that emerges therefrom, becomes one leader you cannot hold to account. And therefore you will have no reason to grumble when he does not deliver on your expectations. Thirdly, when you sell your vote, definitely it is only for that moment. And by the time you are able to finish enjoying the 2,000, 5,000, or even as little as 500 naira that is being given to you, at the end of it, the benefits that good leadership will provide you over a period of 4 years before the next election must have been frittered away. So what these messages the NOA carry out to the people in the languages they do understand, through jingles, mainly using radio, because the message goes to the communities where the majority of our people reside.
Interesting, thank you.
Two, television jingles, of which the Trust TV has been helping us in airing. You know, don't sell your vote. If you do this, you are going to do this, this, and this. I are going to do this and this and this and that. So partnership with the media. Three, partnership with traditional rulers and religious leaders. Partnership with political parties. Unfortunately, our political parties have done nothing.
We have just 3 more minutes to break, and I want to bring Mr. Nick into the discussion. So 10 seconds.
Have learned nothing, have forgotten nothing, and instead of concentrating on their educational function, mobilization function, they are only reduced to be mere platforms for political contest.
Thank you. That's a very important. That's a very important dimension of this issue, because it's not only INEC or NOA that should educate voters. In fact, political parties should do more of the voter education than even agencies like that, because they are the ones who need the votes from the beneficiaries of the votes. But Mr. Nick, if someone who has been on the field on behalf of INEC, would you say that voters have this understanding, such as Dr. Abari has put forth now, that there is a connection between voting and good governance or bad governance? Do Nigerian voters have that understanding?
Let me say that by law, you know, the commission is mandated statutorily to conduct voter education and to promote sound knowledge of democratic processes.
Just 1 minute, yes. Go ahead.
But that does not preclude the political parties, who are the chief beneficiaries of the process. And we have seen over time that the political parties have derelicted on that duty. And we have also seen a diminishment, a decline in the quality of politics from what we used to see, for example, in the First or Second Republics and this Republic. Whereas in the First and Second Republics, we saw politics that were ideologically based and driven. We have seen parties that are bereft and vacuous of any ideology. So that is one of the challenges. And one of the things he underscored, which is that there are families that you could trace their antecedents, their pedigree to certain political parties in the past. We don't have these parties. We don't have this again, this phenomenon again, because the parties are not ideology-based. People could associate, for example, with the PRP in certain areas, like Kano, Bauchi, Jos. You know, for generations, they belonged to the PRP. And whatever you did, unless the PRP said otherwise, they would always vote for the PRP, whether it won the election or not.
Interesting.
There were people who also subscribed to the ideology of the NPC, or the Northern People's Congress. And subsequently, you know, when it metamorphosed into the MPN, they took their allegiance, their fealty, and their fidelity to the MPN. We saw this. But you cannot speak of that now, because we have seen a diminution, a decline, a drastic decline in the quality of politics. Politics is not ideology-based, and that is why people can, you know, migrate from one party to the other without any qualms. And like I said, the ordinary voter himself has been buffeted. He's been affected by so many challenges that he's not even looking at these qualities. He's not looking at ideologies. He's looking at survival. Meanwhile, the politicians have taken advantage of this.
We have to go on break now.
Yes.
When we return, we'll be looking at two important issues that have emerged. One, what political parties do, maybe the collapse of ideology, but also an important issue that you raised, you know, for example, issues about ethnicity, religion, because if political parties have collapsed, then maybe that leaves space for other interest groups to come in. We'll look at how these affect how voters understand their power. Thank you for staying with us. So far, we've been talking about the power of voters in Nigerian elections, and when we return, we'll continue with that discussion. My name is Suleiman, and I have with me the DG National Orientation Agency, Dr. Garba Abari, and Mr. Nick Dazan, a former director of voter education and publicity in INEC. Stay with us.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Inherited a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? Looking at EPL, we are looking at their names. We are not looking at...
My people, reason this thing now. When PDP day, our country be safe. Naira strong, economy they grow. Fuel 7 naira, rice 8,000. Our light in better. Oh, when change people come, no work, no food, economy forgotten. Naija borrow, banditry foot down, japa left and right, sapa up and down. No need to gamble, say joy. PDP don't come, say joy. We cover Naija, say.
Vote the safe choice to recover Nigeria.
PDP! Power to the people!
Now, PDP Presidential Campaign Council sponsored this message.
I'm very prepared because this is our legitimacy, what's it called? That we have to prove our indigenship of our country. It gives me privilege and power to vote who I want to lead me in this country. And that is why I'm holding it.
I'm ready to vote and to make Nigeria right. PVC is one of the key things as a Nigerian. I think every Nigerian should have a PVC, and that is your right and that is your power.
Very prepared. I'm already waiting for Saturday. I can't even wait for Saturday to come for me to vote my choice candidates. To some extent, the power it holds is, personally, is to me is the possibility for me to express my power and then my feelings.
I would say 95% prepared. 95%. We'll leave the 5% so that we'll use our own in case of anything, but I'm 95% prepared. So I know the power of my PVC just to, according to what I've heard, is to create a new Nigeria or create a new, get a new government. You understand? And during this election that is coming, I believe my PVC is my own power to vote for who I want to vote for. Just like we have freedom of voting. So that's what my PVC is all about.
Well, I am 100% prepared, and I believe that other Nigerians are likewise prepared to go and cast their votes on that very 25th of February 2023. Yes, that's my right for the next 4 years. If I'm not mistaken, 8 good years. So without my PVC, I can't have the right to vote or a candidate of my choice. So it's powerful.
100% prepared. 100%. You can see the suffering is not easy. If you don't have cash, you cannot be able to buy fuel. So you can see the suffering now that we are moving on the road and I can't stop. So because we don't have cash, so we have to start looking for where to get cash in order to go and buy fuel. So it's so terrible. So we are fully ready to vote this Saturday. And my power of my PVC, it holds a lot to decide. The person that I want him to be in power. So that alone stands as a power for my PVC. You're welcome.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, total volume of 130...
Inherited a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
welcome back. This is Nigeria Decides 2023 on Trust TV, and we are discussing the power of voters in Nigerian democracy. Apologies for that, for the short delay. We've had a little technical challenge, which we have fixed, and now we continue. I also understand that Nigerian voters, actual real voters, have lined up to speak on the phone with us as this program continues, and we hope that you too will join us tomorrow when we meet again in another edition of Nigeria Decides, because it is open to Nigerians like you. So, Mr. Nick, you were saying something about political parties and their lack of mobilization and so on. But no matter how much they try to mobilize, what if voters decide to vote according to their ethnicity or their religion or their region? How does that work, you know, in relation to the issues of good governance and good leaders that you were talking about earlier?
Yes, you see, Dr. Abari talked about something that certain roles political parties are supposed to serve. In the classical sense, they are supposed to, you know, aggregate and articulate interests that indwell in a polity. In other words, they are supposed to be a reflection of the opinions, of the views that obtain in that society. So when political parties are not ideology-based, then they are not likely to pander to these particular, you know, opinions or views. Be it as it may, the voter also has a fundamental right, an inalienable right that is recognized by law. First of all, to use his vote to exercise his franchise, and to exercise this franchise freely and in secrecy. You know, and when that happens, then it accords with international best practices. And that is why, if you look at the processes, voting processes everywhere in the world, the voter comes, he queues up, he's accredited, he's given a ballot, he enters a cubicle that ensures that he has that secrecy, and he votes in secret. The only thing he does is that he inserts his ballot in the appropriate ballot box, you know. So it doesn't mean that if you go out and you know, try to get me to your side, I will vote for you. I have to be persuaded that you are in a position to deliver the kind of good governance that I want.
But what if people follow their religious leaders?
Yes.
Or their community leaders or traditional
No, but you see,
leaders?
the point is, even as we work with stakeholders like leaders of faith-based organizations, traditional rulers, they also know their boundaries. They don't canvass along religious or ethnic lines. After all, there are subjects, don't forget, yes, there are subjects cut across the major religious lines.
One moment, you mentioned that you work with them as well, the religious leaders, traditional rulers. Do they know their boundaries? Because we have been following this election, even especially on social media. You see where in pastors, in mosques, imams, and pastors, you know, in churches and all that, where they're dabbling into election issues and literally saying that if you don't, you know, vote this or vote that, you know, they don't say it that mention candidates, but as they speak, you know who they're talking about. How does that work in relation to voters and the power of voting and voting good leaders in a country like ours?
Whether you're asking whether religious leaders know their boundaries.
Yes.
Majority of them do, while a few others do not.
Okay.
And that is why you find pastors and the imams using their respective platforms to spew fake news, misinformation, hate, and the divisive messages. This is because the politicians and the political institutions have conceded the place to these people. The failure of the political parties, because in a political party, you find people of different religious persuasions. You find different people of different age grades, different gender. You find people of different cultural, traditional, linguistic persuasion in political parties. So the political party that is worth its salt should be able to comprise of all of these and at the same time be able to strike the very delicate balance in the handling of such a massive followership through interest aggregation and articulation. But because they are not doing that, they have conceded the place to people who actually have seen a window and have actually expanded it into a big beast. And this is why we see religious leaders coming in to occupy spaces that do not really belong to them.
So the few that don't know their boundaries among these religious leaders and pastors and imams and so on, how much damage can they do?
A lot.
To voters? Okay.
A lot. A lot, because even the values of the two religions that teach love and peace and the security, love for one another, oneness of the humankind, the oneness of the humankind, the goodness of the majority, the utilitarian principle that should govern actually public utterances, individual utterances, things that will actually promote the good of all, have now been subjugated, to the whims and the caprices of these elements of hate, these elements of division, and this element of disunity. This is a very dangerous trend that unfortunately has reared its head into our polity and is doing a lot of damage to the political process and polluting the entire political waters.
Thank you. But thank you very much for that. Mr. Nick, I was bringing you into the discussion, but I've just heard that there's a voter on the line, there's a caller on the line. Yes, hello? Oh, okay, so we lost the board. So what responsibility does this majority of the religious leaders, and traditional rulers who know their boundaries, like Dr. Abari said, majority know their boundaries, a few don't, and this few can do a lot of damage. So what responsibility does this majority that know their boundaries have in checking the excesses of this minority among them that don't follow or
you see what is beautiful? What is beautiful is that even in amongst leaders of faith-based organizations and traditional rulers, there's a hierarchy. And at the apex, most of the leaders tend to be measured. They are mature about what they say, and they issue pronouncements that, bring healing to the polity, unlike the few, that he mentioned. But what is key for me is that the prominent ones, issue these kinds of pronouncements that help the process. And by the minority that seem to be partisan will have no option than to take their cues from their leaders who are being measured and who also make sure that they don't issue pronouncements that inflame passions.
We have a caller on. Yes, please, when you are calling, you dial the phone number, and then when you are on, you tell us your name, where you're coming from, and then you ask your question or make your contribution. Yes, please. Yes? Oh, okay, we've lost them again. Okay, yes, please.
Yes, because as I was here waiting for this program to commence, I was privileged to watch two leaders of faith-based organizations, one on Trust TV and one, on social media. One of them, the leader of Jeep Whips, Alhaji Jingr in Jos, was appealing to voters to vote for persons that are honest and that will deliver good governance.
Thank you.
By the same token,
deliver good governance.
By the same token, someone sent me a clip.
I have to cut you because we have a caller so that it doesn't go off again.
All right.
Yes, please. Tell us your name, where you're calling from, and then you can make your contribution or ask a question. Yes, hello there. It doesn't seem to be on. So, Dr. Gerber, this last good governance that he mentioned brings us back to the issue that we were talking about earlier, vote buying and selling. You know, people always talk about vote buying, they don't talk about vote selling, because there must be a seller for any buyer, isn't it? So people are saying that the current climate of the Naira redesign policy has made it even easier, has made voters more vulnerable to inducement by politicians. That before there was voter buying, now it's likely to even increase because of how people have had to struggle with accessing cash, even for small transactions. So what's your opinion on that? Do you think that voter trading is likely to be worsened by this situation or not?
I think largely this is something that is left to the individual discretion, largely. If a voter insists on selling his or her vote, there is very little you can do, no matter the amount of education and the mobilization. But the issue now about the scarcity of the currency in the country, whether this is going to enhance and promote
voter buying
and facilitate transaction between the voter and the politician. I think this is, I don't think in any way that will do, because generally everybody is now actually in search of the currency, both the politician and the voter. No one is there. Of course, you never can tell with Nigerian politicians, whom I always keep saying have not learned anything and have not forgotten anything, and would always want to find a way around to circumvent, established norms and principles, But the lesson that we have gotten from the field, and let me take you back to an experience I had in 2019 when I went for voter education against vote buying. I went to a state somewhere in the country, and what my community mobilization officers brought back to me as intel was that it's not that people do not understand the power that lies in their PVC, the power of the voter, but that for some existential reasons, they take from this politician, they take from the other politician. That's one. That for existential reasons. For the other reason of not knowing, what to differentiate between party A and B, and what party A will do for me and what party C will do for me if I vote them, they take inducement and they are usually placed on oath. Now, when they take these inducements and they are being placed on oath, when they come to cast the vote, they deliberately invalidate the vote by voting either across boxes or they will vote this and that in the process, invalidating so that they don't fall victim of the oath they have already taken. I mean, the values have gone that low. The values have gone.
How do you respond to that, Mr. Nick?
Well, let me start from where he began, which is this issue of currency design and so on. For me, it affects us at the same level. Okay. There is lack of this currency. And so for me, curiously and interestingly, it provides a kind of level playing field. It's a leveler.
But some people are saying that ordinary citizens
have
been affected. It is
let me make my point. Maybe you get me. It's a leveler. Almost all the people who are out to buy don't even have the currency with which to buy. So we now have a true level playing field. And that agrees with one of the principles of INEC itself, which is that in conducting elections, it shall provide a level playing field for all candidates. To that extent, for me, the current currency design or redesign or whatever you call it is a plus. in that it denies people who would have used this currency to buy votes, you know, that opportunity. So to that extent, it's a good thing. Everybody is operating from a pedestal of lack of this currency.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, people will now vote their conscience, and then at the end of the day, you know, the outcome will now be a reflection of the intentment of the voter. So for me, it's a good thing.
Thank you. So we have just about 2 minutes before the end of this program. So Dr. Abari, has DGNOA, what message do you have for Nigerian voters regarding the power of their PVCs, as you put it earlier? That's about our last comment.
I have had series of engagements. First, please, if you are 18 and above, come out and register. And of course, we have seen the volume of the number of persons on the INEC voter register, bigger than many countries of the world. Yes. 92 million. Now, haven't asked Nigerians to come and vote, to come and register. We say, collect the PVCs, please. So we haven't now asked Nigerians to collect the PVCs. On election day, make use of this PVC and vote your conscience. Vote this because it is a fundamental civic responsibility bestowed on you by the Constitution and the Electoral Act. And of course, it is a civil responsibility that is bestowed on you to deepen our democracy and to make choices that will eventually lead to the emergence of the kind of leadership we all wish to see.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, Nigeria is at a defining moment, a watershed moment, where the country is beset with daunting challenges. And therefore, the voter has a responsibility to vote for candidates that will turn things around. You should vote for candidates that have the acumen, the intellect, the commitment, the stamina to deliver on good governance and change the fortunes of this country for good.
Thank you. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is where we come to the end of Nigeria Decides, our very first edition. Tomorrow we'll bring you a bumper edition of Nigeria Decides, and I am Suleiman Suleiman. But before that, tomorrow, just stay with us and wait for Daily Politics on Trust TV. Good night.